Mm. Oh boy, that's pretty good. It's not, this is the it's not the tea bag coffee. It's not my espresso, my little Italian espresso machine. It is my well, it's the little coffee maker. Mm. It's a little coffee maker that came with the apartment. You know, you put in that little cup. I wonder, do people recycle those little cups? You know what I'm talking about? Those little containers, whatever the hell you want to call them. Do people do people recycle those things? But anyway, so start of my first full day here at the resort. I'm in, I'm in a resort. I've got the resort to myself. I don't have to worry about social distancing in the elevator. Nothing. I've got the whole place to myself. But anyway, you know, I was waking up this morning. I slept like a baby. I really did. I slept like a baby, and and you know, what was I going to say? I forgot what I was going to say. But anyway, so the I was going about my morning today. I've only been up a short while, as a matter of fact. Hmm, that's good also. So I'm going about my morning today, and I'm just kind of walking around this little place. It's a nice little place. I mean, it's got what I need. You know, it's quiet, but with my hearing, just about everything's quiet. You know, it's quiet. Somebody's making the who's out there making all these comments on my videos here. Let's see here. Loyalty, your mom, your mom, your mom. Logan's Toys and Games. Okay, so we got a nutcase tuning in. We got a nutcase tuning into us. But anyway, hmm. So I'm going about this morning, and I'm thinking to myself, this isn't anything fancy. It's nothing glamorous. It's nothing, but it's comfortable. It's quiet. It's clean. It's safe, and I'm thinking that's all I need. And then for some reason, I found myself thinking back to a day many years ago. Oh, it must have been probably 25 years ago. My dad, when I left home when I was I left home at 18, and I pretty much was removed from my family for the better part of 10 years, between the military and living footloose and fancy free up in Northern California. And I didn't back then. Back then, I, I, I was struggling. I was living hand to mouth for years. And finally, when I was about 28 or 29, it's about the same time that I found God, same time that I became born again. And my father came out to visit me. I had a nice apartment, and my dad came out to visit me. I had a sister that lived about 3 hours. My sister lived 3 hours south of me, and and the and I lived north. So oftentimes, you know, if somebody would come out to visit, they'd come out to visit my sister for a couple of weeks, and then they might come up to visit me. My mother never did. My mother, she would go out and visit my sister, but she would always find a reason not to come up and visit me. She would always make arrangements to go south instead of coming north. But my dad, anyway, the point of the story is in correlation to what I'm talking about today. The point of the story, I'm going to turn this chair a little bit. There we go. So the point of the story was that my dad came out to visit me. I had just moved into a new place. The address, I can share the address. The address is 4145 Shadow Lane. 4145 Shadow Lane in Santa Rosa, California. And this apartment complex that was just, that's where I built my community garden. And it was a beautiful, beautiful, it is a beautiful, beautiful apartment complex. And my dad came out to visit me. And I really didn't know my dad that much. I mean, growing up, my dad, my dad was present. He obviously he was present in my life, but as a man, I didn't know my dad that much. I really didn't. I didn't know much of him. He was just this guy that would fix my bike tire, or this guy that would bring home. My dad used to bring home stacks of paper. They would run these reports. He worked down at the power company, and I guess they would run these reports on these 8.5 by 11 pieces of paper to monitor different systems or something like that. He was a mechanical engineer, and they would run these reports, and on one side of the paper would be the report, and on the other side of the paper was completely empty. And my dad, he used to bring home these stacks of paper for us kids to do our homework on and what have you. But hmm, but that was the dad that I knew growing up. That was the dad. So when I got my place, when I finally got out of living hand to mouth, and I was starting to make my way into the world, and I moved into 4145 Shadow Lane in Santa Rosa. My dad came out to spend a couple weeks with me, and I had a little tiny apartment. It was apartment 833 up on the third floor. Anyway, long story short, we were down at the I was down at the pool one day, and I went upstairs to get something out of the kitchen, and I walked in, and there's this little piece of paper. There's a little piece of paper. I still have it. I still have this little piece of paper, and I've told this story before, I'm sure. But there was a small piece of stationery paper on my counter, and handwritten was a Shaker hymn that my dad had picked up out of. He saw it in, I think he saw it in a Reader's Digest, and it made enough of an impression on him to write it down on a piece of paper and put it on the countertop for me. He didn't tell me that. He didn't say I left you something. He didn't make a point to discuss it. He just saw this in a Reader's Digest, and it made enough of an impression on him that he thought to write it down on a piece of paper and put it on a counter for me. And I was 28, 29 years old at the time. And I walk in and I see this piece of paper, and I pick it up, and at the top of this paper, in his handwritten, it was a handwritten, at the top it said Shaker hymn. I thought, that's what the heck is a Shaker hymn? And I started to read it, and it said, "'Tis the gift to be simple, 'tis the gift to be free, 'tis the gift to come down to where we ought to be. And when we find our place, and when we find ourselves in a place just right, we'll be in the valley of love and the light." And I looked at that and I thought, that's interesting that my dad would share this with me. I didn't think much of it at the time, but the very first two lines of that is what really stuck. Tis a gift to be simple, tis a gift to be free. Those are the two lines that really, really stuck with me. Tis a gift to be simple. And as I was waking up this morning and I'm going through this little house here, I'm thinking I'm thinking to myself, it's simple. It's a simple place. And and according to that Shaker hymn that my dad shared with me 25 years ago, it's a gift to be simple. So long way about long way about telling you that story. But anyway, it's a I'll be honest with you that there's a sense of loneliness. You feel a sense of being alone, of isolation, but you also feel a sense of comfort here. I'm comfortable, and would I rather be waking up with somebody next to me in the bed that I could spoon with, or or go for a walk on the beach with? Probably, but like I've said before, it's all about perspective. There are no shortage of people that would give their left arm to be in my situation right now. So anyway, I'm just going to appreciate it for what it is. Mm. You know what Carlo doesn't like about the Costco biscotti? What Carlo doesn't like about I learned this. It has a spice in it, anise, anise, anise or something like that. An herb, a spice that gives it a peculiar flavor, and that's what Carlo doesn't like. He doesn't like that little hint of anise. I hope I'm I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Anise, 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 and not anus. I don't know. Anus doesn't sound right, but who is that? Is that Carlo? Ciao, I'll follow. Okay, but anyway, spice the lockdown. I've gained 15 pounds. No more biscotti for me. Hey, it's Mark. Star, yeah, it's Mark. But I was not anus. I know it's not anus, but how do you pronounce Anise? 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 How do you pronounce that? Anise? Anise? Anus? Anise? I don't know. It's just one of those. I wish that. Yeah, you call it butt. I wish that. Hmm, I wish that Alexa were here. Maybe that's what I need. Maybe that would really, really take the edge off of loneliness, having Alexa here. But anyway, what else is Anise? There you go, Simon. Simon, you know everything. You know that? That's why I keep you around, Simon. That's why I haven't banned you from my channel, because you know everything, Simon. Oh, good old Simon. I think it was Simon that used to repair badminton rackets, if I'm not mistaken. But Simon, I hope your back is doing well. But what else is on my mind? Hmm. I'm in this place for. I'm going to be in this place now for the next, well, 7 nights, 8 nights. I'll be in here for 7 or 8 nights. And when I check out of this place, it'll be the 11th of May. And my flight home right now, as it is scheduled for the 15th. And boy, I got to tell you, and you're probably tired of hearing about this, about my indecision of staying or going, or what have you. Um, Again, I'm watching the news last night, and they're showing, and they're talking about the food shortages that are happening back home, and they're talking about these meat processing plants where hundreds of workers are getting sick from coronavirus, and they're shutting down these meat processing plants, and CBS News was showing the supermarket uh, shelves of just being empty of food, like cold cuts and meat counters and everything just being empty. And it may not be in your neck of the woods yet, but I think they were showing Michigan and Illinois or something like that, the food shortage. And I'm thinking, oh my God, and then I'm looking and I'm seeing these protests all around, protests of people being tired of being told to stay home and all of these large large scale protests in states like Ohio and California and all these different places. And I don't know if the news is just, I mean, I know that people are going to say that, well, it's fake news, but I don't know how they can fabricate a supermarket with empty shelves. And I don't know how they can fabricate, uh, you know, mass protest and what have you. And in Michigan, they went into I guess, the Capitol with armed with various weapons and what have you. And I look at that, I look at all of that, and I contrast it to where I'm at. I contrast it to Aussie land, and I just I don't know what to think. I'd like to go back there and get in my camper and head west and go out to you know place my camper out there somewhere in the Western Pines and sit by a campfire and all that kind of stuff. I mean, that's very, very appealing to me, but then I see all that stuff on the news. I see all that, that's happening back there on the news. And I think to myself, do I really want to go back there? I mean, I can take my laptop and when I finish this morning video and I do my breakfast, I can take my laptop and walk 5 minutes, 1 minute, 1 minute out my front door here and go sit on a beautiful picnic table out looking at the water, maybe seeing dolphins running around in the water and what have you. And and then, oh goodness, actually, I see all these comments. What is it? I'm really proud of how Australia and New Zealand have dealt with coronavirus. More pasta, folks. News is all type. They're not social distancing people on airlines. Be careful. Michigan is fine. Oz is fine. Good bunch of people. Stop watching the news. Stop watching the news. I'm not going to stop watching the news. Maybe, no, I'm not going to stop watching the news. I think it's important to be informed. And I also think it's important not to limit yourself to one source of news. My primary source of news is Fox News. That's where I get the majority of my news is from Fox News because they report and I decide. That's what I like about Fox News. They get to report it, but they let me decide. See, a lot of news don't do that. They don't tell you. They don't say, okay, we're going to report it and you decide. CBS doesn't do that. CBS doesn't let me decide. Okay. Fox News, they let me decide. CNN doesn't let you decide. No, only Fox News. Fox News is the one with the slogan, they report, I decide. So that's why I like Fox News. And I also like Fox News because it's fair and balanced. That's why I like Fox News. Because they tell me, they say it's fair and it's balanced. And that's important to me. It's important that my news is fair and balanced and that I get to decide. So why wouldn't I watch Fox News? I mean, I'm just saying. But Karma's probably out there right now going like this, something like that. But anyway, what else is on my mind? Oh, so you know, I'm gonna bite the bullet tomorrow, Monday, and I'll sit down at my computer here, and I'll at the very least I'll apply for a visa. And you know what my guess is? My guess is and maybe I'm just thinking negative. The only type of visa that I can apply for is a really is a visitor visa. That's it. I can only apply for a visitor visa. And I don't know what questions, I'm sure there's an application process, and I'm sure I have to fill in, you know, X, Y, and Z and tell them, why I want to stay and all this kind of stuff. And submitting that application on the 4th, I very well could have an answer. I very well could have my answer by the 15th. And that could be the answer. And it wouldn't surprise me if it is. Um, and I think that in 11 days, they probably will be able to process my visa request. There's probably not a lot of people right now applying for visitor visas in Australia. And so my inclination is that they'll process my visa rather quickly. But if they don't process my visa, then I automatically am issued what's called a bridging visa, like a bridge over troubled water. Uh, I get what's called a bridging visa. And that bridging visa might be in and by itself, that might be a 30-day visa. And then, with the airlines, I called United Airlines last night, and my ticket is such that I could just cancel it 2 hours before my flight and get a voucher or a credit, for another flight. Uh, that's the situation with my flight. Let me do that again. I could just cancel my flight and like that, and I get I remember learning how to snap my fingers. It took me a little while. I think I was 8 years old when I finally figured out how to do that. But anyway, so that's the story with that. I'm going to talk to you about something a little bit more sensitive. I'm going to stir it up today because we're heading into the election, and oh, what an interesting election it's going to be. Donald J. Trump against Joe Biden, Bum, bumbling Joe or whatever they call him. But anyway, so the all the news, all the political news lately has been about this woman that's come forward and said that Joe Biden pinned her up against a wall in a hallway in when he was a senator or I don't know, congressman or whatever it was, when when he was in the Senate. I think it was a senator, but he pinned her up against the wall, and he reached under her skirt, and you know what he did under there. That's what she said. And I'm driving down the road yesterday, and I'm thinking about this. I was listening to Buck Sexton. I kind of like this guy, Buck Sexton, Sexton. Mark Levin, Mark Levin is a little bit. He's too. He's just too angry. You listen to Mark Levin, and the guy is just always angry, and I just don't like that energy. And then you listen to Glenn Beck, and Glenn Beck is just too dramatic. It's like the sky is falling all the time. When I listen to Glenn Beck, and he's always selling stuff. I mean, Glenn Beck is he's always, if he's not selling My Pillow, he's selling gold or emergency meals or all this kind of crap. But Glenn Beck is kind of the doomsday guy of talk radio. And then you've got, of course, Rush. Say what you will about Rush. Rush is the single most successful. He has the single most successful talk show in the history of radio. Think back. I mean, think back before television came out. How big and how prominent radio was in our lives. I think they call it the wireless. That's what they used to call it, the wireless. But anyway, so I was listening. So Rush has the single greatest radio show, I guess, in so far as like ratings or listeners or whatever it is in the history of radio. Did that sink in? In the history of radio, Rush Limbaugh has the single most successful radio talk show in the history of radio. So, anybody out there who's, oh, I hate Rush and I can't stand Rush, and you got to give credit where credit's due. Even if you don't like the guy, you have to acknowledge his achievement. And then when you acknowledge his achievement, you have to wonder why he has achieved what he achieved. But anyway, so when I'm not listening to Rush, I listen to Buck Sexton. I get him on podcasts. I'll be driving down the road listening to iHeartRadio, and I'll listen to the Buck Sexton show on my podcast. And I'm driving along yesterday, and I'm listening to this whole story about this woman. Is her name Tara Reid? Something like that. I think her name is Tara Reid. And so she comes out with this accusation about what Biden did to her. And so I'm driving along, I'm thinking to myself, what would be this woman's motivation? When Kavanaugh was going through his hearings, when Kavanaugh was being nominated or going through the hearing process to become a Supreme Court justice, they bring this woman out of the woodwork who was an obvious, she was an obvious left-wing liberal wacko. And they bring her out of the woodwork to try to, smear Kavanaugh's name and all that kind of stuff. And it was an obvious, to most people, to most educated people, it was an obvious ploy by the left to stop the right. It really was. And that whole debacle we had to sit through with Kavanaugh and this woman and what have you. To me at least, I was just looking at it and I'm thinking, comes out. And I'm driving around and I'm listening to this woman. I'm listening to the story of this woman. And I'm thinking to myself, and this Buck Sexton wasn't discussing it from this perspective, but I'm thinking to myself, what's this woman's motivation? Is she a right-wing plant? I'm thinking, no, I don't think she is. I remember reading that she voted for Hillary twice. She worked for a Democratic senator. This isn't a right-wing plant. This is a left-wing. I don't know if she's a liberal wacko, and I use that term affectionately. If you're left-wing, if you're a Democrat, okay, and I say liberal wacko, okay, don't take offense. It's just an affectionate term that I use for people on the left-wing liberal wackos, okay? So don't take offense to that. Don't unsubscribe. Don't thumbs down, all right? Just chill out. But so I'm thinking to myself, here we have a woman who's on the same side as this guy Biden is. She plays for the same team. And she's coming forth saying that he went under her skirt forcefully and did you know what? And I'm thinking, what could be her motivation? She's not working for the right, obviously. And I thought, does she want fame? Does she want to be famous? And I thought, no, probably why would somebody want to thrust themselves into the national, if not the global spotlight? For what? To get some recognition? And I'm thinking, maybe, but I don't think so. So that leaves me to conclude that in all likelihood, she's probably telling the truth. Biden probably did do this to her. And it's the court of public opinion. At the end of the day, it's going to be the court of public opinion. And those of you out there that have already got your Biden 2020 bumper stickers, or maybe you're waiting for him to nominate, the VP, okay, before you get the bumper sticker. But for those of you out there that have got your Biden bumper stickers, or have them ordered, or wearing your Biden 20 shirts and all that kind of stuff, particularly you women, are you going to vote for a guy that in all likelihood pinned a young girl up against a wall and put his hands up her skirt and did you know what? And are you going to vote in good conscience? Are you going to vote for that? I don't know. I mean, I now in fairness, I voted for a man who was caught on tape saying that you can grab a woman by a you know what. Okay, so I mean, I'm being fair here. I voted for that. I voted for a guy that said that. He was caught on tape saying that, and I don't know. Why did I vote for him? I don't know. I mean, has our society just gotten to the point where we just overlook these kind of things? We just kind of overlook them. I mean, as far as Donald Trump, every time I talk politics with somebody and they want to know if I'm a Trump supporter, I say, well, I said I voted for him. I wouldn't want to take a long car ride with him per se. I necessarily wouldn't want to, not, there's a lot of people I wouldn't necessarily want to take a long car ride with. Okay. And but anyway, it's just kind of it's an interesting reflection on where we've come as a society that we would vote for somebody to lead us that is of that character. So anyway, it's just kind of an interesting thought, but I got to get on with my day. It's a Sunday morning down here. You can see the sun. I've got the curtains closed, but I'll open them up here. There's some nice little places right around here. If you Google Shoal Bay, Shoal Bay, Shoal Bay, Google Shoal Bay, but there's some other nice places that are around here. You see, I'm at Port Stevens, if you can see that. So Port Stevens, in and by itself, is a nice place to go, but they've got a section here on the neighborhoods that you can do. And there's Anna Bay. Anna Bay is the entry point to Stockton Bight Sand Dunes in the Wormy Conservation Land, largest moving coastal dunes in the Southern Hemisphere. The largest moving coastal dunes in the Southern Hemisphere. So, that would make a good Tom TV, Anna Bay. And then you have Corlett and Salamander Bay. Salamander Bay and Corlett. Corlett has relaxing walks, gorgeous waterfront parks, and reserves perfect for picnics and walk and talks. No, it doesn't say that. Where you can ride into Nelson Bay. Salamander Bay has a major shopping center and a family entertainment and aquatis precinct nearby. And anyway, they go on to say, they've got Fingal Bay. I think that's where we went. Camel on our camel ride was Fingal Bay, and you have Nelson Bay, and you have Shoal Bay and Soldiers Point. Soldiers Point, located on a peninsula with stunning waterways featuring a marina, jetties, Tillagary. So anyway, there's no shortage of opportunities to do little day trips. Put in your 6 8 hours, 6 8 hour work, and then go do some of this stuff. I don't know if it's whale season yet. You see. I don't know if it's going to be whale season while I'm here, but maybe it will be. So anyway, I need to get on with my day and let you all do the same. So everybody out there, take care. And I'm sure I've given you plenty to think about today. But if you take anything away from this morning thought, just remember, 'tis a gift to be simple, 'tis a gift to be free. 'Tis the gift to come down to where we ought to be. And when we find ourselves in a place just right, it will be in Shoal Bay, Australia. No, it'll be in the Valley of Love and Delight. All right. Take good care. All right, see you later. Oh, before I forget, I was just about to hit the little button before I forget. You know what I find so damn interesting is the popularity of my check-in videos. Yesterday I did a video with the morning kangaroos. It was a brilliant video. The drone flying over the kangaroos kind of going like this, you know, and what have you, and what have you. So I upload that video of the kangaroos, and I wake up this morning a day later, and the kangaroo video had like 90 views, and my check-in video had double what the kangaroos had. And it just baffles me. You would think more people would be interested in seeing kangaroos going like this than me checking into a little simple one bedroom apartment in a place like Shoal Bay. But I don't know. Maybe some of you can enlighten me as to why that is. Have a have a great day.